All right, so everyone's been talking about triple support in Marvel Rivals lately, so I figured it's time for me to chime in as well as a support player. Also, quick heads up, I'm planning to do weekly hot takes and look at some top Reddit threads, just like I did on my second Overwatch channel, the KarQ Archive. So if you've got some spicy takes on Rivals, drop them here in the comments or in my Discord. But for now, back on topic, triple support. Is it as good as people think? No, it's aight. It's viable, but it's just aight. But is it frustrating, annoying, and maybe boring to play against? Absolutely. I mean, if you look at all these threads and topics and discussions on it on social media, you get the idea of how people are feeling right now. I think any ability that is defensive or anything that inhibits your gameplay by nature, like CC, like stuns, roots, knockbacks, they're not really well liked on the receiving end because players want to feel good, make plays, and have these pop-off moments. But when a support hero can just press one button and completely shut down a perfectly set up and executed DPS ult, it can feel frustrating. You feel like you can't play your hero as a duelist, but the strategist player can feel like they're playing their hero because they're doing their job and it feels like you're not. So with triple support, if we look at the stats here, you'll run into it in about 20% of your games. And this is real data. And if we actually filter it for Celestial Plus, it shows up even more. Like if we add these comps up, it's like 33% of the time. So let's break it down. Triple support, the pros, the cons, and why it's just okay and not overwhelmingly OP. All right, for the pros, first, it's easy to play. You don't need synergy with random teammates. You just can pick 3 supports, spam heals, and stay alive, and you're always contributing to like a baseline value. Another pro is that it's very forgiving and it can stall the fights and objectives. Like even if the enemy team does everything right and kills like 2 or 3 of your teammates, a single support that ends up surviving that one fight can use their ult and buy like 10 to even 18 seconds of time with their ultimate and give your team time to trickle back in. And on that note, another big pro is that this comp actually shines more on defense when you have to play defensive sides or on the domination mode if you cap first. Because if you cap first, even if you're losing, as long as you cycle your ultimates nonstop, you can actually stall it out to 99% or even win it out with one lucky one team fight. Now for the cons of triple support, number one, it's kind of predictable, right? If you know what to look for, you can dismantle it. I'll get into that in a moment. Number two, it's actually not really played in pro play that often, and for good reason, which I'll get to in a minute. And number three, the actual biggest issue of triple support is the lack of DPS, in my opinion, the lack of damage. Outside of defensive ult cycling, you're kind of just healing, and you need a very aggressive triple support lineup, like maybe a Mantis, Adam, plus a defensive ult, or 2 defensive ults plus a Loki, or something that can be really aggressive, or else you're kind of just playing to survive, not to win, and you're going to be losing tempo, especially in the first fight. Okay, so how do you beat triple support? So in my opinion, I think you run a 2-2-2 or a 1-3-2 comp, and just tempo ult immediately, as in use your ult immediately as soon as you get them. Since triple support shares ult charge across 3 players where the majority of their charge is based off of healing, their ults will come up slower. So take a look at this example where I played support on defense here with 3 supports, but the enemy team didn't on attack. Their Cloak and Dagger was able to build their ultimate way faster than our team because again, we have to split our ult charge across 3 players, and they snowballed that advantage and won the first fight and capped the point and went on to do pretty well. Another way to counter triple support is to play bursty or one-shotting kind of heroes, or someone who can displace people outside of those defensive ults. So some of the best heroes to counter it. Okay, Magneto, my S tier tank right now. I think he's shot up a lot in season 1 as the best pick. He's versatile, and his ultimate, Fear Magneto, can, you know, reliably kill Cloak and Dagger if she's not ready for it. Can kill Invisible Woman, and can kill Luna Snow through their ultimate. This thing is fantastic in the tank category, the Vanguards. Speaking of Vanguards, the other one is actually Groot. I think Groot is really good this season because he can wipe teams if he combos it with like Moon Knight, for example. Moon Knight being another great pick as well because his ultimate got buffed where he says the moon and it bursts through defensive ults, and Groot can kind of set that up. And an underrated thing is his walls. If you don't know, Groot's walls can like cut off line of sight of Luna's ultimate. You can block Cloak and Dagger from dashing in, and if you wall off the supports in general, like outside of the supports using their ultimates, Cloak and Dagger can't break that wall. Like Cloak and Dagger does no damage against the Groot wall, and if it's on a really tight choke, she's kind of stuck in the back. Same with Luna, no pressure on it. The only support that can kind of heal through it is like, I don't know, like a Loki or like an Adam to help break it down, or a Mantis can help shoot it down, and Loki can kind of teleport and get around it and break it. But in general, with Luna, Sue, and Cloak being the 3 big defensive ultimates, they can't get past the wall. In the duelist category, I mentioned Moon Knight's ultimate. Namor as well. Obviously, he's a good anti-flanker, but his ultimate also can kill supports through their defensive ultimates because that middle circle of Namor does 500 damage. Kind of needs Groot to set it up, but even without it, if people get hit on the outside 200 damage ring of it, if Namor has monster spawn set up, he can primary into secondary fire and and actually kill people through it. Iron Man and Scarlet Witch for their ultimates, but honestly, I think Iron Man's still kind of solid, but he's kind of fallen off a bit because of his nerf to his sound. He sounds like an AC-130 when he flies around, so you can't get a sneaky maximum pulse. And then the Hulk team up, which helps him outside in his neutral, outside of his ultimate. Hulk still gets banned a lot in Diamond Plus, so it's a little bit harder to play. And Scarlet Witch is Scarlet Witch. Her neutral outside of her ultimate is kind of like a tickle monster against triple support. The ultimate takes like 3-4 business days. It's like 4 seconds for the pure chaos to pop off. Not my favorite burst ultimate in the game, but hey. Other one shots, let's see. We have Hawkeye and a damage boosted Widow, Black Widow, if you combo it with a Mantis damage boost or like a Storm damage boost. Let's go through some honorable mentions in the DPS category. Maybe Magic. Magic actually has a cheesy one-shot combo, a one-shot tech where you like go Dark Child, charge the projectile, and dash at the same time. Thor, actually a Vanguard that I missed. Thor actually has some crazy DPS. I forgot to mention him. You're gonna have Winter Soldier or Bucky who can hook people outside of the defensive ult, like when Cloak and Dagger's done her ultimate, and I've seen a lot of Buckys pull them out and punch them away from it so that they can kill them. And honestly, in the damage category, Rocket Raccoon, a little underrated when he has his Amplifier. It's like a huge damage boost that can help other heroes get to that kill breakpoint or those damage breakpoints to burst through these defensive ultimates. Now, other counters outside of this, outside of just like picking specific heroes for their ultimates to one-shot stuff, is like running a full dive comp. That can work, and using that to kind of like force the supports to kind of reactively ult. You have to full dive or pressure the supports and sneak into that backline to force those panic ults. That's another way to do it. Another way to counter these ults is look for resource trading, ult trades. In the 2-2-2 comp, you usually have those strong ultimates like Strange, Magneto, Moon Knight, and Namor, and trading even one of those for a support ultimate can be worth it. If you can force their hand without ulting yourself, it's even better. Also, I just mentioned Strange. Forgot that Strange actually does have like burst potential when he Eye of Agamotto's, because they have 2 hitboxes at 100 energy. You can burst people through defensive ults. So some final thoughts. Triple support is definitely annoying and frustrating, but it's not broken by any means, and it's definitely not unbeatable. If anything, it's kind of like a crutch comp that works in ranked in a lot of cases because of that baseline value, but against coordinated teams, it kind of falls apart due to the lack of damage and tempo. All right, that's like my initial thoughts and spiel on it. I'm gonna go through 2 Reddit threads that I saw about triple support that I kind of want to add some commentary to and add some of my thoughts to. All right, so this Reddit thread has like 3,000 upvotes, 1,000 comments, and they say triple support meta doesn't exist. And the screenshot is, this is real data, like I said earlier, 222 is a 50% pick rate, 132 is a 21% pick rate, and then the triple supports are at 16% and 8%. And they're saying the meta doesn't exist because of how low the pick rate is. Now, the problem with this is that this statistic is averaged out for the entire season. And while high level players were picking up on it pretty early in season 1, the triple support discussion and stuff only really started surging over the past 2 or 3 weeks, which would naturally keep this, statistic pick rate lower when you account for the entire time frame of the season. If we could actually filter out like what the most popular comp is by like the last week or the last 7 days, it might actually look a lot more different, where if you add the 2 triple support comps, their total pick rate would be a lot higher than this. Again, that being said, you actually do have to account for the 2 iterations of it. You see 1, 2, 3, 1 tank, 2 damage and 3 supports, and the 2 tank, 1 damage, 3 support. Both are triple support. And if you add them together, that's like 25% in this specific screenshot, which would be your second most popular comp because it would knock the 1-3-2 down one, right? I also want to take a look at this win rate here in the stat that this person posted. 46%, 45% for triple support. Win rates being low doesn't mean it's not necessarily meta. Win rates being low can be attributed to people swapping to triple support in an already losing scenario. Like, think about it. Your Spider-Man's 3-12, and somehow you convinced him to just go healer or go supports because he's feeding at the half. But at this point, your team is probably mentally boomed, and the Spider-Man is probably just picking something that may generate better value because he's feeding, but it still may not work out. You probably still end up losing the game. You're also putting the Spider-Man player on an off roll rather than actually, naturally having 3 good support players on your team. And I feel like triple support ends up being a cop-out for playing poorly on your main role. Like, you may be cracked on Spider-Man, but you're inconsistent. In this game, you decided to, swap because of social pressure, or you actually felt like you're not doing your job. And then you're just like a worse Mantis than, your worst Spider-Man or something. I think triple support is good if your team naturals, like rank solo queue into 3 natural actual support players and they all just slot into the role, then that would probably be like a 50% win rate, but closer to like a good 50% positive win rate. But off roles, and people playing off roles, forcing it when they climb most of their rank as a DPS or Vanguard, and then they just cop out and play support because they got bullied into it. Like, let's face it, everyone has bad days. That will skew data. The low win rate can also be because I'm a firm believer that triple support is weaker on attack, and people are, they see their streamers and their content creators, favorite content creators say triple support is meta now, and now everyone's trying to force it or it isn't necessary. Again, it's weaker on attack, better on defense. And if you're forcing it on attack, you just kind of lack the team wipe potential, and the defenders who opt for triple support will have a better time because all they have to do is stall and just win this war of attrition. Another reason is, like I said, the creators and streamers say triple support's meta, but they don't actually know why it's meta. They're just echoing the content creator. The point of the annoying triple support is to obviously stack or cycle defensive ultimates like Luna's, Cloak and Daggers, Invisible Woman's, etc. And then maybe have one flex support like Adam, Rocket, or Loki who can, go copy like a defensive one or go offensive if he copies a Storm or something. Like, people don't know why it's meta, and they actually end up using these defensive ults at the wrong time, or they stack two of them at once, or they use their defensive ults at very bad times. Like, if you're not holding these ultimates to counter and deny kills from like the big DPS ults, triple support kind of feels meaningless, right? You lose a lot of value, you lose a lot of damage. Also, another thing is like a lot of Vanguards or duelists feel that because you have triple supports, they think they should never die, which is obviously not true. Then they go a little too aggressive. What else could this low win rate be attributed to? Well, stacking defensive ults, which again loses the bulk of their value. I mentioned that. And I guess similar to before, everyone just doesn't know how to play it, right? When I said you can go too aggressive and still die, you can also have the opposite where tanks are too passive with the extra heals, or they're going too Rambo thinking they're invincible. Like, both ends of the spectrum there. And if you opt for like the 2 tank 1 duelist triple support, you can't really pick a damage hero that isn't like solo carry or can't confirm the kills themselves as reliably. It could also have a low win rate because people are not playing the right comp around triple support. Like I mentioned earlier, tanks can be too aggressive and feel like they're invincible, but they can also conversely be too passive. And when you have these extra heals and they're not doing anything, you're just standing there. And then if you have like your one support and your one duelist, if you're running the 2-1-3 iteration, you can't pick a duelist that doesn't have like reliable solo kill confirmation like Scarlet Witch, who is just a tickle monster. You need like some really bursty stuff to pop off as your single duelist in that comp. Also, one more thing with the statistic with win rates is that you need unmirrored win rates. Like, this is averaged out. And I know this because in Overwatch, when I used to read or I still read the developer blogs that Aaron Keller, the game director, used to put out, they explain this concept of unmirrored win rates, which basically looks at games where like the hero is used by one team and not the other. And this is important because if a hero has an extremely high pick rate, their win rate will naturally trend closer to 50% because every time they win, their counterpart on the enemy team will also lose. So it kind of skews the data closer to the middle. So you have to narrow the data to instances where the hero pick isn't mirrored by the enemy team to get a better picture of how they're faring. So in these compositions, we need to see how triple support fares specifically against other iterations of triple support or 2-2-2 or 1-3-2 specifically. And without the specific filters, the data nice and interesting to look at, but you can't let this make decisions for you. All right, there's one final thread here, which is triple support is meta because of lack of anti-heal. Now, this is also a hot take. I don't think this is true, and I don't think anti-heal is necessary because it's very powerful on Ana in Overwatch. Not a true anti-heal, but like a percentage healing reduction is fine and can be introduced in a hero's kit somewhere down the line in the future, whether that's, maybe 33% healing reduction, which is what TFT uses, I think, for like Sunfire, Cape, or Morello, or maybe, round it up to 50% for a nice flat number. You can go either way here. Or the easier solution to kind of like reduce the frustration of triple support is to just nerf the duration of some of these ultimates or the time it takes to build some of these ultimates. Like, these are two separate knobs you can choose to turn and dial depending on the direction you want to go. I mean, Cloak and Daggers went up like crazy this season because of the extra dash. It's like 18 seconds, isn't it? Like 2 seconds for each dash, and the last dash will last 10 seconds. So it takes 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds. So it's 8 seconds and then 10 extra seconds on the final. It's 18 seconds of stalling. Luna's is 12 seconds. Mantis doesn't feel too bad. Invisible Woman doesn't feel too bad. They're both 8 seconds. Like, Zenyatta in Overwatch is like an 8-second ultimate, right? And that feels like pretty much the limit of what it should be. Lucio's beat is around the same. It's a big overhealth thing, and then it kind of tapers off pretty damn quickly. And I think that's the direction they need to go to kind of like lower that sort of power spike that the supports have. I still think they need to be meaningful and impactful in terms of its raw power, but just the uptime or the time it takes to build needs to go down. And that's it. I think I've yapped long enough. Let me know if you guys like these like longer discussion pieces, if you like listening to this kind of stuff. Hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Peace.